Imagine planning the perfect birthday celebration, only to have it hijacked by your own aunt and her spoiled daughter. A day meant to honor you becomes an embarrassing spectacle of entitlement and greed. How far would you go to reclaim what's rightfully yours? In today's story, one woman reaches her breaking point and exposes the toxic family members who've been making her life miserable for years. This dramatic confrontation leads to an unforgettable family showdown that changes everything.
Publicly exposed my aunt and spoiled cousin after they hijacked my birthday celebration, turning it into an embarrassing spectacle. My aunt, a 41-year-old woman whom I'll call Karen, married my 43-year-old uncle just over a year ago. She brought along her daughter from a previous relationship, a 12-year-old girl I'll refer to as Emily. Even though my uncle only came into Emily's life when she was 9, he's always treated her like his own, stepping into the father figure role she never really had. When their relationship became serious, my uncle was eager to introduce Karen and Emily to our family. Since then, they've been present at most of our gatherings and holiday celebrations. I tried to be welcoming at first, but I've never really liked Karen. She's always been demanding, expecting everyone around her to do what she wants, without showing any respect for others. For example, she'd consistently show up late or not at all to events. And when I say late, I mean 45 minutes to an hour late, even when punctuality was emphasized. Apologies were never her thing. Karen had a habit of asking others to do things for her, whether it was fetching something, running to the store, or handling tasks she didn't feel like doing herself. She never accepted no for an answer. She's openly stated multiple times that she expects to be treated like a princess. My family found her impolite and disrespectful, but we held our tongues because my uncle seemed happy with her and we didn't want to rock the boat. The bigger issue, however, was Emily. I can't even begin to list all the disrespectful and entitled things she's done, but I'll try to give some examples. When she was first introduced to us, I was 20 and typically sat at the adults' table during family meals. Emily decided it was unfair that I got to sit with the adults while she didn't. She demanded either she be allowed at the adults' table or I be sent back to sit with the kids. Remember, she was 10 at the time. Instead of explaining that I was an adult and she was a child, and that's why we sat at different tables, Karen told me to join the children's table. "You're being selfish," Karen said to me. "If you can't be mature about this, maybe you belong with the kids." I was taken aback. "But I'm 20. The children's table is for those under 15, I replied. She shrugged. "Age doesn't determine maturity." From that point on, Karen made sure I was seated with the children at every gathering. It was humiliating, but I didn't want to cause a scene. Emily would constantly ask me to play with her, even when I was busy or working. If I said no, she'd throw a tantrum. Karen would then scold me for making a child cry and not being a good cousin, forcing me to comply. But when I did spend time with Emily, she'd boss me around, asking me to make her snacks, dress her dolls, or do chores for her. If I didn't obey, another meltdown would ensue. She frequently took my belongings without asking, especially my makeup and clothes. When I told her to stop, explaining that she hadn't asked for permission and was too young for makeup, she'd have another fit. Karen would then force me to be generous, dismissing my concerns. "She's just a child," Karen would say. "You should be flattered she looks up to you." "Flattered? She ruined my favorite dress," I pointed out after Emily spilled juice on it. "Maybe you shouldn't leave things where she can reach them," Karen retorted. Feeling helpless, I started locking my bedroom door during family visits. But that didn't stop Emily. She once picked the lock and helped herself to my jewelry. When I confronted Karen about it, she accused me of lying. "Emily would never do such a thing," she insisted. "Stop blaming her for your misplaced items." For some reason, Emily was always jealous of me. Anything I had she wanted, and she demanded I give it to her. When I got a new phone for my 21st birthday, she begged her mom for the same one. Karen actually approached my uncle and suggested he buy Emily the same model. "She's only 11, my uncle said, baffled. "She doesn't need a phone like that." "Well, if your niece can have one, why can't your daughter?" Karen argued. "It's a gift for her coming of age," he tried to explain. "It's different." Karen gave me a dirty look. as if I were to blame for the whole situation. When I graduated with my bachelor's degree, my family threw a party to celebrate. I was so proud and excited to share the moment with everyone. Emily, however, was sulking in the corner. Midway through the party, she burst into tears. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" my grandmother asked. "No one cares about me," Emily wailed. "I want a party too." Karen swooped in. "See? She's feeling left out. It's not fair that all the attention is on one person." I couldn't believe it. "But it's my graduation," I pointed out. "Exactly," Karen said. "Everything is always about you. Emily deserves to be celebrated too." I was stunned into silence. The next day, Karen threw an identical party for Emily at the same venue, inviting all the same guests. It felt like a slap in the face. Emily's behavior only worsened as she grew older. She made every event about herself, even my birthdays. During one of my birthday dinners, she pretended to feel sick, causing everyone to fuss over her instead of celebrating. I tried to be patient, reminding myself she was just a kid, but her entitlement seemed to grow with each passing year. The final straw came 2 days ago during my birthday celebration. I was born in early May, but we decided to have the party in June to ensure good weather for an outdoor gathering in my grandparents' garden. I was excited. We'd planned a lovely day with family and friends, complete with a barbecue and games. As usual, Karen and Emily arrived about an hour late. The moment they walked in, Emily crossed her arms and surveyed the scene with a scowl. "Why are we celebrating your birthday a whole month late?" she demanded loudly. I forced a smile. "We wanted to make sure the weather was nice so everyone could enjoy the outdoor party," she huffed. "Well, if we're celebrating birthdays whenever we want, we should celebrate mine too. I never get a real birthday because it's so close to Christmas." I took a deep breath. "Emily, your birthday is in November. That's not really close to Christmas." "It is too," she insisted. "And everyone forgets about me because of the holidays." Karen chimed in. "She's right, you know. It's unfair that her birthday gets overshadowed." I glanced around, hoping someone would back me up, but everyone seemed uncomfortable. "Karen, we always make a point to celebrate Emily's birthday separately," I reminded her, "and we all get her gifts." "Well, maybe we should celebrate it today," Karen suggested with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "That's not appropriate," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is my birthday party. There's enough cake for everyone," she pointed out, "and it would make Emily happy." At this point, my grandmother approached us. "Is everything all right?" "Actually," Karen said, turning to her, "I was wondering if we could add a cake for Emily so we can celebrate her birthday too." My grandmother looked puzzled. "But Emily's birthday isn't for another 6 months." "Yes, but she feels left out," Karen said, placing a hand on Emily's shoulder. "It would mean a lot to her." My grandmother, ever the peacemaker, sighed. "Well, I suppose we can find another cake." "Thank you," Karen beamed. Emily then piped up, "But it won't be a real birthday without presents." Karen nodded. "She's right. Perhaps some of you could pop out to buy her a little something, or we could share some of the gifts that were brought for." She trailed off, looking at me as if she couldn't recall my name. I felt a surge of anger rise within me. This was beyond unacceptable. They were hijacking my birthday, turning it into yet another event centered around Emily. Feeling fed up, I excused myself and went into my grandparents' house. My heart was pounding as I searched for something I could use. In the storage closet, I found an old cardboard box. An idea formed in my mind, admittedly a petty one, but I was at my wit's end. I wrapped the box hastily, making it look presentable. Inside, I placed a handwritten note. "Congratulations on being such a spoiled brat. But don't worry, it's not your fault. Your entitled mother raised you that way. Hope you enjoy your present." I knew it was immature, but I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction as I sealed the box. Returning to the party, I placed the gift on the table with the others. When it was time to sing Happy Birthday, Karen made sure everyone sang to Emily. She started the song herself, loudly emphasizing Happy Birthday, dear Emily, while glaring at anyone who didn't join in. I stood there silently, my fists clenched at my sides. After the song, Emily eagerly tore into the gifts. She opened mine last. As she read the note, her face twisted in confusion, then rage. She let out a high-pitched scream and threw the box on the ground. "How could you?" she shrieked, tears streaming down her face. Karen snatched up the note and read it. Her eyes widened and she turned to me with a venomous glare. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded. I met her gaze steadily. "Exactly what it says." "You're cruel," she spat. "How dare you treat a child this way? How dare I?" I retorted, my voice shaking with suppressed anger. "You've hijacked every special moment I've had for the past 3 years. You've enabled her spoiled behavior, and I'm done with it." The guests were silent, watching the confrontation unfold. Karen looked around, expecting support, but none came. "Let's go, Emily," she snapped, grabbing her daughter's hand. "We don't need to stay here and be insulted." As they stormed off, Emily wailed dramatically, ensuring all eyes were on her. After they left, an awkward silence settled over the party. I felt a mix of relief and guilt. Had I gone too far? But then my grandmother approached me. "Are you all right, dear?" she asked softly. I nodded. "I'm sorry if I caused a scene." She patted my arm reassuringly. "Don't apologize. Someone needed to stand up to them." Others began to chime in, expressing their frustration with Karen and Emily's behavior over the years. "It's about time someone said something," my cousin Jake said. "They've been ruining family events for too long," added my Aunt Linda. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time, I realized I wasn't alone in feeling this way. However, the aftermath wasn't entirely positive. Later that evening, I received a barrage of text messages. Karen sent me long, furious messages accusing me of being heartless and cruel. My uncle chimed in as well, expressing his disappointment in me. "I can't believe you'd treat Emily like that," he wrote. "She's just a child." Even some extended family members reached out, scolding me for ruining a little girl's birthday. It seemed Karen had been busy spreading her version of the story. I considered responding, but I wasn't sure what to say. Part of me felt justified. After all, I'd finally stood up for myself. But another part of me wondered if I'd crossed a line. That night, I lay in bed replaying the events in my mind. Was there a better way I could have handled it? Should I have confronted them privately instead of making a public scene? But then I remembered all the times I'd tried to set boundaries, only to be dismissed or ignored. The next day, I decided to speak with my uncle directly. I called him, hoping we could have an honest conversation. "Hi, Uncle," I began hesitantly. He sighed. "I suppose you want to explain yourself." "I do," I said. "I know what I did wasn't the most mature way to handle things, but I need you to understand where I'm coming from." I recounted all the incidents over the years, the stolen belongings, the tantrums, the way Karen undermined me at every turn. "I've tried to be patient," I told him, "but Emily's behavior is out of control, and Karen enables it. It's affecting the whole family." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "I didn't realize it was that bad," he finally said. "With all due respect, maybe you haven't wanted to see it," I replied gently. He sighed again. "Maybe you're right. I just want everyone to get along." "I do too," I assured him, "but that can't happen unless things change." We talked for a while longer, and by the end of the conversation, I felt we'd made some progress. He promised to speak with Karen and consider getting Emily some help. As for the rest of the family, opinions were mixed. Some supported me wholeheartedly, while others thought I'd taken things too far. In the end, I stood by my actions. Sometimes, standing up for yourself means taking a risk, even if it ruffles a few feathers. I don't know what the future holds for our family dynamics, but I hope this will be a turning point. Perhaps now, Karen and Emily will reflect on their behavior, and maybe, just maybe, we can start to heal and move forward. I still wonder if I should have handled things differently. Maybe a private conversation would have been better, but after years of being dismissed and having my feelings invalidated, I felt I had no other choice. At the very least, the incident opened up a dialogue within the family about boundaries and respect. In the days that followed, several relatives reached out to me. My cousin Sarah sent a text saying, "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. It's not easy, but it was necessary." Even my grandmother called to check on me, reiterating her support. "Families are complicated," she said, "but we have to hold each other accountable." I agreed. "I just hope this leads to positive change." "Give it time," she advised. "People don't change overnight." As for Karen and Emily, I haven't heard from them since. My uncle mentioned that they're taking some space to reflect. I genuinely hope they do. Emily is still young, and with the right guidance, she can learn and grow. Karen, on the other hand, might be a tougher nut to crack. In the meantime, I'm focusing on myself. I've realized that setting boundaries is crucial for my well-being. I deserve to celebrate my accomplishments without fear of them being overshadowed. And while it's unfortunate that things escalated the way they did, I don't regret standing up for myself. Life is too short to let others steal your joy. Sometimes you have to be your own advocate, even if it's uncomfortable. And who knows, maybe this will be the catalyst for much-needed change in our family. Update 1. Shortly after the birthday debacle, my dad called me with several important updates. He mentioned that my uncle had reached out to him before contacting me. My uncle expressed that while he understood my perspective and didn't blame me for speaking up, he felt I shouldn't have humiliated Emily in front of everyone, ruining what could have been a special moment for her. My dad didn't hold back. He reminded my uncle that Emily had been harassing me for years and that she had humiliated herself by trying to steal someone else's birthday. It shouldn't have been a great moment for her because it wasn't her moment at all, my dad pointed out. It seemed my uncle partially understood, but my dad suspected he couldn't fully agree with me without upsetting Karen. My uncle lamented the family conflict, not wanting to strain relationships with my dad or our grandparents. He wished for happiness and peace within the family. My dad suggested he should address these concerns with his wife, noting that our family had always been harmonious until she came along. My uncle then asked my dad to persuade me to apologize to Karen and Emily so we could move past this incident. My dad agreed to talk to me, but assured me he'd support my decision either way. When he relayed this to me, I stood firm. I told him I wouldn't apologize and that I expected a genuine apology from Karen and Emily for their years of mistreatment. Until then, I planned to ignore them and exclude them from any events related to me. My dad also advised my uncle to consider divorcing Karen, given how miserably she treated him and everyone else. My uncle admitted the situation was complicated, but didn't elaborate. Apparently, other family members had begun sending messages to Karen, expressing their frustration and highlighting her unacceptable behavior, things they'd kept bottled up for years. My uncle somewhat blamed me, accusing me of starting a hate train against her. I told my dad that Karen had brought this upon herself. It's gotten pretty bad, my uncle had said. Even relatives who weren't at the birthday party are messaging her. While I felt the barrage of messages might be excessive, I understood why it was happening. People had been silent for too long. Eventually, the dam was bound to break. My uncle asked if I could come over to talk things out with Karen and Emily. My dad assured me that I didn't have to go if I didn't want to. I told him I wouldn't go alone. I was tired of being bullied by them, but might consider it if my parents accompanied me. I'm not expecting them to suddenly realize they've been in the wrong, I said, but maybe there's hope that Emily can unlearn this behavior and grow into a decent person. I also felt that the flood of messages to Karen might be going too far. Perhaps if we talked, we could start mending fences. I was torn. Should I go? Update 2. I decided to meet them. Before I delve into how it went, let me clarify a few things. Many advised against it, saying it wouldn't change anything, and they just demand an apology. But even if it didn't alter their perspective, I wanted to get everything off my chest. I needed closure to move forward. I set conditions. I would only meet if my dad came with me, if we met in a neutral location, a park, instead of their home, and if they allowed me to speak without interruptions or expecting an apology. I also made it clear that I'd leave the moment any of these conditions were violated or if I felt uncomfortable. Addressing some comments, I don't blame anyone for not speaking up earlier, including myself. I wanted to keep the peace, mainly for my grandparents' sake. Family means the world to them, and conflicts are heartbreaking. Could I have said something sooner? Perhaps, but I don't regret the timing. Now on to the meeting. We gathered in a quiet area of the park about an hour ago. I had prepared a list, a detailed account of every instance where Karen or Emily had behaved like entitled brats. I laid it all out, explaining how disrespectful and hurtful their actions had been. I managed to stay calm throughout, which I was proud of, and they let me speak without interrupting. When I finished, Karen scoffed. She claimed I was overreacting, that most incidents were minor and insignificant. She acted as if she only heard me mention trivial issues, like Emily asking me to play, wanting to try on my makeup, or making offhand comments. "You're making a big deal out of nothing," she said dismissively. "Kids will be kids." I took a deep breath. "Karen, these aren't minor issues. If everyone in the family has the same problems with you, maybe we're not all overly sensitive. Maybe you're the common factor." She bristled. "This family doesn't know how to treat newcomers," she retorted. At that point, my uncle stepped in. "You asked for explanations, and you got them," he said to her. "If you didn't want to hear the truth, why insist on this meeting?" Karen looked taken aback. "That's it. We're leaving," she declared, grabbing Emily's hand. As they turned to go, Emily paused. She looked at me and said softly, "I'm sorry I ruined your things and your birthday." Then she walked away with her mother. Considering my low expectations, the meeting went better than I anticipated. I don't know if Emily's apology was sincere, but it felt genuine, especially since Karen didn't prompt her. Karen didn't acknowledge any wrongdoing, but I hadn't expected her to. I'm grateful my uncle spoke up, even though it might cause him trouble at home. My dad told me I handled the situation well, and that now we could move forward. Update 3. Turns out, my uncle did face repercussions for standing up to Karen. About an hour ago, he showed up at our house with a suitcase, asking if he could stay with us for a while. We quickly gathered that he'd had a blowout with Karen. After returning from our meeting, Karen gave him the silent treatment, ignoring him entirely. This didn't surprise me. It's a manipulative tactic she often used to make him feel guilty. But this time, he refused to apologize. The tipping point came this afternoon. He overheard Karen talking to Emily, essentially justifying her entitled behavior. She told her daughter that demanding things from others made her a strong, powerful woman. According to Karen, people were upset because they feared Emily's strength. My uncle couldn't stay silent. Being disrespectful isn't the same as being powerful, he told them. Truly strong people achieve their goals while respecting others. Karen exploded, accusing him of always defending me and undermining their family. He stood his ground, telling her that everything I'd said was factual. "If the truth makes you uncomfortable, maybe it's time to reflect on your actions," he said. She continued to scream until he couldn't take it anymore. He left to clear his head. When he returned, he found himself locked out. Karen had packed some of his belongings into a suitcase and left it on the doorstep. Now he's considering contacting a divorce attorney. Karen isn't responding to his calls or messages. Even my grandparents have tried reaching out, but she's ignoring everyone. I have mixed feelings. Part of me feels guilty for triggering this chain of events, but another part feels relieved that my uncle sees Karen's true colors. The unfortunate part is Emily. If they divorce, she'll be solely under Karen's influence, and I worry she'll continue down the same path. I had hoped Emily was starting to realize the impact of her behavior. Her apology felt like a step forward. Now, I'm not sure she'll have the opportunity to change, but perhaps this upheaval will be a wake-up call for her, too. In any case, it seems we're finally free from Karen's toxic presence. Today feels like a turning point for our family.
Standing up against toxic behavior isn't easy, especially when it involves family. But setting boundaries is crucial for your well-being and can inspire others to recognize and address the issues at hand. Sometimes, confronting the problem head-on is the only way to initiate change, even if it's uncomfortable. If you found this story engaging, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and check out our other videos.